What's up, fellow developers? Today we'll be creating a design for a to-do list app. So this is going to be the design. Let us start with creating the splash page of this application. So I have an empty project here. I'll import all the assets necessary for the application. Once that is done, we'll open pubspec.yaml file. And then let's add the dependencies. I've also imported a font. Let me add that as well. Okay, now let us get rid of the unwanted script. In theme data, I'll write the font family, and then let us get rid of this stateful widget. Let us get rid of the debug tag. Now once this is done, let us create a scaffold, and in this scaffold I'll create a center widget. Let's create a container, and then let's add the decoration to be box decoration, image to be decoration image, and let us import the icon of this application. Perfect. Now we'll add a timer for this one. So I'll create a new init state function for this. So just above the build, I've created an init state. In that I'll be adding a timer. Let us create a duration of probably 3 seconds. And then let us give the callback function. Now I'll define the callback function here. and then let us create a new class over named as onboarding. Now for the timer to work, we have to create a dart async, so that is already done. Now we'll create a new class. Let us import material.art, and then let us create a stateless widget. Let us change this container to a material app. Let's define the home here. And then let us import the onboarding dart file here. Okay. So now when we run the application, after 3 seconds it has to go to the next page. Perfect. So on this page we'll create the debug to be false, and let us also define the theme. Okay. Now for the onboarding page we'll be using a page view. So let us start doing that. First I'll create a scaffold. The body I'll give it a stack. Let us create a column widget for this one. I give the main axis alignment as start. Now let us define the children of this column widget. I'll first create a container. Now let us add a child as page view. Now a page view needs a controller, so let us define that. Now in this I want the initial page to be 0 and keep pages as 0. Keep pages as true. Okay, and let us also create a variable named current page that will be 0 on the start of the application. Now let us create children for this page view. This is the name of the image that I've imported already in the asset folder, and this will be the text that will be shown on this page. I'll create 3 more pages. I'll also add a on page changed function that is going to return a value. I created a function that will take a parameter of this value. Let us define these widgets and the function also. I wanted to return a column widget, so I'll write as column on board page. Now the first one, as you know, is the string, that's the name of the image, and the second one is also a string that is going to be the title of this page. Now let us return a column widget. And I'll keep the main axis alignment as center. I'll define the children here. Let's also define the set current page function. I'll change the current page to the value that has been received, and let us set state. And now let us fill this column widget. I want the height to be around 20 points, and then after the sized box, let us create a container of height 200 and width same as that of the document. I'll also give it a padding of around 50. I'll add it as a decoration image. Now we have already received the image path, so image name. Let us import that. Now you can see that all the images are in place, and once that is done, now we have to add the description or the title of that page. So I'll give it a sized box of height 50 again for a space. And then let's again create a container. Now this time I'll give it a padding of 10 points on the vertical axis. Now let us create a child text widget. Now we have already received the title, so that should be in place now. Good. Let us style that widget. I'll give it a font size of 30. And font weight of probably 500. Great. And after this, let us create a small description part. I'll again give it a container. I'll add it a padding of vertical axis 10 and horizontal to be 40 probably. And then let's add a child widget again. Great. Now let us style this widget. I'll give it a font size of 16 and color to be gray, just to differentiate that from the title. Now I want it to be center aligned, so I'll give it a text align of center. Now this looks good. And then let's get back to the other division of this page. Like once the on page event is done, let us add a row widget. And then I'll add a children. And now I want to generate an indicator for the page number. So what I'll try to do is that I'll try to create a container. I'll generate the list. We have 3 pages, so I've given the index, the maximum limit as 3. Now I'll create a function for this one. Now this is going to be the index, since the index is the page in which it has to be active on the current page. So let's create that. It is going to be an animated container. It needs a duration, so I'll add a duration of milliseconds to be 100. Let's give it a height of 10, and for the width it has to be varied. Like for example, if it is the current page, then the width would be 20, else it has to be 10. Let's add a margin. And then let us decorate this container. Now again, the color has to be different for the active page and the other pages. So if it is the current page, then the color would be black, or else it can be gray. Now once that is done, let us create a positioned widget for the bottom. So I'll keep it as bottom 0. I want it to be centered, so I'll add left and right also to be 0. I'm adding a margin only on the top. Let us give it a height of 300. Let us decorate this page. Okay, let us fit that to fill, so it stretches to the screens. And then Let us add a child which is to this. Let us create a column. I'll keep the main axis to be center, and let us add the children of this column widget. For now, let us keep it empty. Let us create a shadow for this container. The shadow should be of black color. Let us give it a opacity of 0.2. And then let us offset that probably 9 pixels to the y-axis, and then let us add a blur radius and a spread radius of 3. Okay, that gives us a good shadow here. Now let us try and create a child widget inside this container that would say get started. I'll give it a size of 16. I'll just again create a sized box of height 30. Let us style that login text. I want the color to be white and size can be around 18, and it can be bold, so I'll give it a font weight of bold. Great. Now for the click of this get started button, let us add a function. Open login page. Let us create a new document. Let us import material dot dart. Let us create a stateless widget, and then over here we have to import this login page now. Let us get rid of the debug tag on top. Let us also define the theme back. And this one again to be scaffold. Now for this login page, we need a app bar that will have the back button. So let us create an app bar inside the scaffold. I want the color to be transparent, and then we'll add the back button. I'll create the color to be black. Now after this we'll add a container in the body. Let's give it a padding on all sides of 20. Let us add a child column widget. Now let us add the text saying welcome back. Now after this we'll have another text. That should say sign in to continue. And the font size would be lesser, like maybe 18 or 19. Yes. And then let us give it a color of gray. Now after that let us create a sized box of height 20, and then we'll have another text. This should say username. I'll have the font size a bit bigger, and I want it to be black in color again. Now let us create a text field. Okay. And then now let us style this text field. I want the size to be 20. Great. I'll just copy this, and I want the sized box with a bigger space, and instead of username let us change it to password. Now let us add another sized box of height 10. Let us create a row. Now over here we'll add the forgot password option. So I'll create an inkwell widget. Let us create a new document. I'll import that document here. I'll make the size of this one a little bit bigger. Now after that we'll create an expanded widget. Let us add a child, center widget. Let us create this in a color same as that of the path that we added previously. Let us add a child to this widget. I'll keep the color as white. Great. Now when I click on the forget password, it has to go to the next page. Now over here we'll again create a material app. I'll remove the debug tag. Let us also define the theme. Now instead of a container, let's create a scaffold. Now this will again have the same app bar, so I'll just try and copy the app bar widget. This will probably have the same style as of that of the login page, so I'm going to copy this body also. I'll get rid of this forgot password. Now let us change the text to say forgot password. Now this should say please enter your username to receive your password and reset information. And over here it has to say mail ID. And instead of this, let us say yes. And then we don't need the password section, so I'll get rid of that. And this one should say send request. Okay, now when we click on the send request, it has to go to the reset password page. So on on the inkwell of this one. I've added the open reset password page. Great. Now over here let us again add a material app, sorry. And then let us change it to a scaffold. Great. We would again need the app bar here. I'm going to copy that. Now let us create a body. I'll create a child as column widget. The cross axis should be at start. Now this can again be the same as that of the login page. Same as that of the forgot password. Now instead of forgot password, it has to say reset password. Now over here it has to say reset code. And after that we'll have the password block, so I'll give it another text field. This one should say password, and the hint can be Now this one is for the confirm password widget. Now we'll create a new page that will show the success message once the password has been reset. Now let us create that function. Now this button should say change password. Once we click on this change password, it has to go to the next page. Now again we'll create a material app. Let us create a stateful widget. We'll have a scaffold. Now this has to be in the center, so I'll add main axis alignment center and cross axis alignment also on the center. Let us add a height of 300 and width also as 300, so I get a square container. Let us style that description. And then now let us add a sized box. For now, let us keep the on tab as empty. We'll add that later. Let us add a container. That's again going to be the same as that of the other buttons that we have created in the previous pages. Now instead of open success page, it would be open home page. Let us define that function here. I'll create a new home page here. This should say continue. Great. On the home page now, let us again create a material app. Now in this scaffold, let us create a stack. The reason for using a stack is that I want the page to be having a pop-up like this. So if I make a stack and then if I create these designs on one container, I can have this pop-up on the second container. So that's why I'm using a stack. So we'll do the next container later. Let us first start creating the main document. In the children, I'll add a column widget. Now I have app bar here. Now the background color of this app bar has to be the same that was created for the buttons. Perfect. Now I don't want the shadow, so I'll keep the elevation as 0. And then let us add a title. I'll style this title now and give it a font size of 30. Great. Now let us add an actions widget, and that let us an icon button. Perfect. And then over here let us create a container. Of height 70. And then let us add a child row widget. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to create this today and month over here. I want that to be clickable, so I'm adding a inkwell widget. And then let us create a sized box of height 10. Now after the sized box, let us create a container. Then once this is done, let us add the monthly widget here. So that is going to be the same as this one. I'll just take a copy of this and then let us paste it here, and I'll name it as monthly. Perfect. Now we need a variable that should say the filter type, if it is today or monthly. So let us create a string. So on the start it has to be today, and then what we'll do is that for the color of the underline here, let us write that function. So what it would be is that instead of white it has to say filter type equals today, then it needs to be white, or else it has to be transparent. Okay, and over here it has to say if filter type equals monthly, then it needs to be white or transparent. Okay, now you see that it is only enabled for the today section. Now when we click on either of these widgets, it has to change the selection. So what I'll do for that is that over here let us write change filter to monthly, and for here we'll write as change filter to today. Now let us create a function. Now let us see if this works. Perfect. Now after that, let us create a calendar widget. For that I have used a package named as table calendar. So in pubspec.yaml I'll add the dependency of that. It should say table calendar version number is 2.2.3 as of now. Great. Now let me import this table calendar in this page. Perfect. Now let us try and add this table calendar in place. Now if the filter type is monthly, then I'll add a table calendar, or else it has to be just an empty container. So what we'll do is, yeah, okay. So what we basically do is that we'll create a calendar only if the view is monthly. Now this table calendar also requires a controller. So let us do that. Calendar controller is, now let us define this table calendar here. Once that is done, we need to write starting day of the week, Monday. Now if you can notice that there is a small little icon here, I mean small little widget where you can have different styles of the calendar. It can be bi-weekly, weekly or monthly format. Now once this is in place, if we select today, it will not be there. Only if in the monthly section it is going to be shown. Now once that is done, now let us create an expanded widget that is going to display all the list of to-do things, or list of tasks that has to be added. I'll create an expanded widget. I'm giving it as a single child scroll view because if I have a lot of elements in one page, I'll add a column, and I'll be listing all the tasks to be done in that column. So if it is inside this single scroll view widget, it will scroll properly without breaking the UI. Let us add a column. Now let us create the title, like the date of today. Now I want it to show me the month and then the date and then the year. So let us create a variable here, over here, that should say date time today equals new date time dot now, and then I'll add a array of months. So in Flutter I can only get the number for the month. Say for example, if it's January, it's going to show me 1. So if I want the name of the month to be shown, So I'm creating a array. Now this is going to hold all the names. Now let us get back to the script over here. Now it should say month names of today. Sorry. Now it is the first month, like January. It is going to give me 1, but the array starts with a value 0, so I'm going to subtract 1 here. Let us see if that displays. Yeah, see, it is displaying at September. And then after this, let us add the date. And then I want to show the year. Great. Now after this, let us add the task widgets. The first variable would be the color of the task, so this is just a random color. And then this should be the description of the task, and over here it has to be the time. I'll just copy this. Let us change the color. Now let us define this widget. There is an option for us to slide, to edit or delete. So let us create a slidable widget. Now for that, let us use another library from Flutter. So again in pubspec.yaml, we'll import the necessary dependency, and then let's import the class. Perfect. Now let us create this slidable widget here. Now this needs to return a slidable widget, and in that action pane it needs to be slidable drawer action pane. Now the ratio is to be 0.3. Let's add a container as a child, height 80, and then let's add a margin. I'll also add a shadow. You can see that we have created 3 containers, and then let us add the title and the description over here. Now this would create a circle here, and then let us also add a width here. Let us make the width a bit broader. Now after that let us add a column widget. and then let us add the time widget here. After this, we'll add an expanded widget. I want a small bar here, so let us create that. Now once this is done, we have to add the secondary actions like the buttons that will be revealed when it is slided. So let us create that now. If you notice, we have the edit in all these sections. We'll also add um, a delete option. Now let us keep this color as same as the color that we received as a parameter. Great. Now that this part is done, when we have the monthly widget, monthly option selected, we'll have the calendar and the task also. After the expanded widget, let us add a container again. Now this is going to be the bottom navigation part, so I'm using a stack because I want to have a different styled design here, like this one. It has to be a stack then. So let us add a position widget. It needs to be on bottom 0. Great. Now let us add a padding here. Now let us create the icons to be added in this container. Sorry, it needs to be children. And then let us add a container here. In that container we'll create a column widget which will hold the icon, and the color should be white. And then let us add a sized box here of height 5, and then let us add a text that should say my task. Color should be white. Size can be 15. Perfect. Now I'll just take a copy of this container and then let us change this to menu, and this one should say menu again. Perfect. Now I need some space in the middle portion, so I'll add a container of width about 80. That should give me a space in between. Now again I'll have the same container, and then let that say maybe quick task, quick. And this one would be profile. Great. Now after this, let us create a positioned widget in the center. Now from the bottom it will be a little bit raised, so I'm giving it 25. On the left and right it has to be 0 because I want it to be in the center. Now that needs to be clickable, so I'll get a inkwell. For now let us keep it empty. Let us create a container, and I want the container to be square, so I'll give it height and width to be 50 again. Now this has got a small gradient, so I'll try and do that. Now I want this shape to be circle. And let us create it a bit bigger, so I'll give it 80 maybe. Great. Now let us add a child to this widget. I'll add a center widget here, and we'll have a plus symbol in this place. Let us style that. Perfect. Now when we click on this, I want a task pop-up to happen, so let us create that function. Open task pop. So what it would say is that task pop would be open, and it would set the state. Similarly, I'll also create one for the close task pop. Now let us create a string here on the top. So initially it would be closed. Okay. Now what we'll have to do is that, so you remember we created a stack at the start of this page. So after the stack we have to, inside the stack we have to add a pop-up design. For if the pop-up design, if the task pop is open, it has to show that container. So let's add that just inside the stack. Let us create a container. Now only if the task pop is up, or maybe let us create this container height should be same as that of the document. Width also same as that of the document. The color has to be black, probably with some opacity. Perfect. Now let us create a center widget, and then let us create an inkwell, because that needs to be clickable. I wanted to close the task pop if it is clicked. Let us create a container, and let us add a border radius to it. Now I'm creating a new container that will be dependent on the size of the document again. So now let us create a column widget here. Let us add the options that will be shown in this pop-up. Now let us give it a divider. So after this, let us add a container of height 1. And let us give it a margin on the sides. Great. Now let us take a copy of these two widgets. Second one should say add quick note, and the third one should say add checklist. Okay, now I don't need this container because I don't need an underline here. Let us get rid of this and then just add a sized box of height 1. Okay. Now what we'll have to do is that instead of this container, we'll add a condition that should say only if it is open it needs to be here. So over here inside the container as a child, let us add task pop open. Okay, and then if this is not here, then we'll have just an empty container. Now if you notice that if we click on any of these, it is going to close the pop-up. Now what we'll have to do is that when we click on add task or add quick note and checklist, it has to open a new page where we should be able to add these where we should be able to add new tasks and quick notes, etc. So let's try and do that now. Let us define these functions. Before that, let us create some documents. Now let us define these functions here. That's for the new task. Then let us create one for the new node. And one for the new checklist also. Now let us create the task page. Let us create a material app. Let us also get rid of the default debug tag. Let us keep the background color as white. Let's add an app bar. I don't want the shadow, so I'm giving an elevation of 0. Let's add a title. And then let's add a leading widget. Let's create an icon button. And then on press of this icon button, I want it to go to the home page. Now in the body, let's add a container. In a stack, let us create a container first. Let us add a positioned widget. Great. Now let us add a container. Let us create a margin on the horizontal axis. I want this container to be only 85% of that of the document, so I have given a multiplier of 0.85. Let us add a single child scroll view. and then in this row we'll add a text that should say for. Great. Now after the text widget we'll add a container. And then let us add a text as a child of this container. And then let us add a sized box again. And then I'll copy the same widgets, and this one should say in, and this one should say project. Great. Now once this row is completed, let us create a sized box again. And let us then create a text field. I'll get rid of the input border. Perfect. And now let's also define the style of this text. Okay. Now after this container, let us add a sized box again. And after that, let us create a container. Let us add a column widget as a child. Let us add a border radius. And then we'll also create a border. Now in this container we'll add a text field. I'll get a max line of 6. Let us style this widget. Let us get rid of the border on the sides of these widget. Now after this we'll also add a container for the attachment option. We'll also add a border for this. Let us add an icon button. Once that is done, let us add a sized box. Let us add another text field. Let us also style this field. Let us add a border radius for this container. Let us add another container. Let us give it a color. And then let us add a child for this container. A center widget, and then let us add a text here that should say add task. Perfect. Now let us go back to the add quick note page over here. And then in the quick note, the app bar part is going to be the same, so I'll copy that one. Now perfect. Now this one should say new note. Yes. And after that, this part, the top part over here and the bottom part and this container remains the same. So I'll try and take a copy of this and get rid of the widgets that are in between those. Let's do this. So if you notice, if we take the quick note, it's going to be here. Now let us delete this part. Over here in just above the column, we'll add a container, so I can give a padding for this one. And then the column widget has a cross-axis alignment of start, and then we don't have to have this row widget and the sized box. I'll get rid of that one. And now we have a container. Okay. we can get rid of this one too. The rest of the things remains the same, and we don't have the member section here. And the due date remains the same. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have the due date and the member section. We don't need this anyone widget also. This should say add node. Okay. Now just below this I'll need a title saying color. I'll just take a copy of this description, and then let us add it here. It should say color. Perfect. Now let us create a row. Now this will have different color widgets, so let us create a container of height 50 and width also to be 50. And let us add a color. Let us keep it as blue right now. Perfect. Now after this one, I'll just take a copy of this container. Let us add a few more colors. Pink. Then maybe green. And then let us add another color. Cool. Now after this row, let us add a sized box. Perfect. Now we'll create the checklist page. Great. Now this will also have the same uh, app bar and the other stack widget. Let's copy that from the previous page. Or let us copy the whole scaffold. Let us import the home page. Okay, and over here we need to add some checklists instead of the description. So what I'll do is that in the stack inside the single child scroll view, the title should say title, and then we'll have another small text in this space, maybe a dummy text for now. And then let's get rid of the description box. And after the subtitle is over, let us add okay, checkbox list tile. The title should say sorry, it should say list tile control affinity dot leading. Now on change of this list tile, we'll receive a boolean. So I'll give it as boolean value, and then let us set its state if value now we'll create the selected list in a minute. It is going to be a list of int Now if you notice, we can select and deselect this option. I'll take a copy of this one and then let us create a few more list item, but for the ID I'll give it as 2. And then the button should say add checklist, and the title on top should say new checklist. Now let us try this from first. We have the login page. You can also navigate from this page to the home page if you select on login, but right now I've given it from forgot password. There is an option for you to add the mail ID and then reset password, success message, and these are swipeable widgets. You get monthly, you get a calendar, and then you can add a new task, a quick note, and also a checklist. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please do like, comment and subscribe.